Good morning and welcome back to another edition of LCTV News. I'm Dani Vittori, and this week the community got ready for a busy weekend and education was discussed. On the Lynn Lowdown, we have had Gabe Cohen-Glinick, the organizer of the Lynn chapter of Neighbor to Neighbor. Now, the news for Friday, September 9th, 2022. This past Tuesday were the Massachusetts primary elections, and Lynn came out to choose their new representative, sheriff, and DA, to name a few. Tristan Smith of Swampscott received the most votes in Lynn, but Jenny Armini of Marblehead won the overall primary. Kevin Coppinger was re-elected as the Essex County Sheriff, with Paul Tucker winning the position of DA over James O'Shea. Both Coppinger and Tucker got the majority of votes in Lynn as well. Of the more than 56,000 registered voters in Lynn, 45.5% of them came out to vote. For federal representation of Massachusetts, Maura Healey got the Democratic nomination for governor, while Sheriff R.E.A.L earned the Republican nomination. Salem Mayor Kimberly Driscoll won the Democratic vote for lieutenant governor, with Leah Allen as her Republican challenger. Andrea Campbell won for state attorney general. William Gavin was re-elected as Secretary of State, and Diane DiZuglio earned the position of state auditor. Students from Boston and surrounding areas are returning to school this week at the midway point of work on both the orange and green lines. Service will resume for both lines on Monday, September 19th. The MBTA has created a student version of their rider's guide, which can be accessed at mbta.com/BBT2022, as well as a beginner's guide for students new to using the T. Students can also get M7s, which are student fare cards. In addition, the MBTA has provided 5,500 preloaded Charlie cards for families and caregivers so they can ride with their students and learn about the orange and green line diversions. They are also giving another 3,000 to the City of Boston to be distributed at Boston Public Library and City Hall. The City of Lynn just announced the first Racial Equity Advisory Leadership Team as part of a 2-year participation with the Racial Equity Municipal Action Plan, or REMAP for short. REMAP was launched last year under the McGee administration as a pilot program to address racial equity on the municipal level. It is a partnership between the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and Government Alliance on Race and Equity / Race Forward. There are a total of 6 members on the team, led by Fonista Cueves, the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Officer for the City of Lynn, whose goal is to make government more inclusive and equitable for all. This week marks the beginning of construction at Clark Park. The bocce ball courts will be replaced, so the entire court will be pickleball courts. All cracks and floors will be refurbished during this process. There are 5 phases to the project, with the first phase beginning this week and the final phase being completed the week of November 7th. They are currently in the site prep phase, with paving and resurfacing of the courts not beginning until the week of September 19th. Commercial Street will be closed from 8 p.m. on Friday, September 16th through 6 a.m. on Monday, September 19th, so the MBTA can replace the bridge overhead. It carries the Newport-Rockport commuter rail between Riverworks Station and Lynn Station. The new bridge has an expected life of 75 years and will be up and running this fall. While the track is temporarily closed, buses will be offered for commuters and residents to use. Last week was the 11th annual Celebrate Literacy Day at the Lynn Museum. The 2022 Excellence in Literacy Leadership Award was also given to an organization and 2 individuals. Here is more from the event.
We want to celebrate individuals and groups for promoting and instituting literacy for adults and children throughout the city. Literacy is extremely important because when you can read, it opens the world. Children at their earliest is 4 or 5 years old can pick up a book. They don't necessarily need to read each word. They can look at the pictures and use their imagination of what the words may possibly be. But once they start reading without picture books, and their imaginations can just soar. Saratine and the committee that she has pulled together. We pull together and we send out applications to different groups that want to apply to receive the awards, like the R.E.A.L program, our award recipient tonight, and individuals are nominated by our selections committee, and those individuals are chosen based on the nomination, whoever nominates them. This year we're so proud to have Princess, and she is not here this evening, but her brother is. We have a Lynn Public School teacher, Cindy McCleary, who I worked with, and I'm very proud that she's an award recipient. And Adriana Paz is our Untold Story recipient.
The St. George Greek Orthodox Church Grecian Festival took place over the weekend. Traditional Greek food and dancing spread around the church as crowds from the community flooded in. Here is more.
Festival's been great. This is the last evening of a 3-day operation. We've been very excited to see a lot of our old friends, and they've been very excited to see us. Had many people come up, especially at the pastry booth, to say how happy they were to be able to get traditional Greek pastry after a 2-year absence of our festival. Okay, we have spanakopita, which is spinach pie, souvlaki, which is the meat on skewers. We have gyros sandwiches, which is meat wrapped in pita bread. We have pasticcio, which sometimes we call the Greek version of lasagna. It's layers of pasta with meat and a cream sauce. And we have Lokanico, which is a locally made Greek sausage made at Old Neighborhood right here in Lynn. We have a traditional Greek dance troupe. In fact, they're performing right now. They've performed several times throughout the day, today and yesterday.
The Afro Diaspora Festival also took place over the weekend on Saturday at the Lynn Museum. Hosted by Prevent the Cycle, it was an afternoon of conversations and education meant to bring together those of various Afro descent. There was also live music from several countries. Here is a clip from the event.
Today what we have is the Afro Diaspora Festival. It's first of its kind here in Lynn. And what we're doing is highlighting how connected we are as a community within the Afro diaspora, those who identify with their Afro roots, and those who may not even be aware of it. You're going to find out today through music, we have informational boards, even through food, you're going to see how connected we are. And one of the important things that we're trying to work on is how do we identify ourselves and how do we identify in the world.
After attending the Diversity Matters Festival 2 weeks ago now, and meeting some folks and then seeing how some of the organizers were going to put this on, I thought it would be a great opportunity just to stop by.
We're happy here today to have all sorts of local vendors. We have performers from around the diaspora, from Nigeria. We have performers from Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti. It's going to be a fabulous day. We're very excited about it.
I identify as Haitian Puerto Rican, and so I'm really interested to be part of the conversation and enjoy the music and meet people, and I think it's a beautiful day for the community to be together, so I'm excited to be a part of that as a new member.
So how we identify ourselves signifies who we believe is part of our community, who's a part of our families, right? So we want to talk about that and make sure that people start understanding how much bigger their community is, especially here in Lynn.
Now for the sports update. In a scrimmage, which looked more like a regular season game, the Lynn Classic Rams defeated the Winthrop Vikings 3-1. It was a physical game as both sides were competing fiercely, with neither side scoring for the entire first half. It wasn't until there were 17 minutes left in the game that the Rams took a 1-0 lead on a penalty shot set up by Jose Corral and scored by Elzon Hamli. Winthrop tied the game at 1-1 on a long-range goal before scores by Yahir Viveros and Abby De Leon secured the 3-1 victory for Classical. The Lynn Tech Tigers are looking to improve on their season, where they made the playoffs with a 3-8 record but were beaten by Hoosac Valley. According to football head coach James Runner, they have the score from that game hanging in the weight room as motivation for this season. Even as the lowest seed, they were still able to challenge the number 1 seeded Hoosac Valley. Several key players have graduated, so they're looking at other members of the team to step up. Quarterback Tyler Davis is looking to have a breakout year as he is skilled in both passing and running the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, third-year varsity starter Joseph Amaro will look to once again disrupt the opposing linemen. The Tigers open their season on September 10th at 7 p.m. at Manning Field against Essex Tech. The Red Sox have completed a 4-game sweep of the Texas Rangers at home before going back on the road for a division series match against the Tampa Bay Rays. They dropped the first game 4-3. Despite having the bases loaded in the 7th, they were unable to score. They then lost the next 2 games 4-8 and 1-0, respectively, to be swept by the Rays. They are now traveling to Baltimore for a 3-game weekend series against the Orioles. This week on the Lynn Lowdown, we sat down with Gabe Cohen-Glinick, the organizer of the Lynn chapter of Neighbor to Neighbor. Here is the lowdown. Good afternoon and welcome back to the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and today we are joined by Gabe Cohen-Glinick. I said that correctly?
Yeah.
The Lynn organizer for the Lynn chapter of Neighbor to Neighbor. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, quick little intro. What is Neighbor to Neighbor?
Yeah. So Neighbor to Neighbor is a community-based organization, grassroots organization across the state of Massachusetts. We have 4 chapters, and Lynn is one of them. And we are a member-led organization, so we're made up of folks from the community, and we advocate for the rights of working families, immigrant families, communities of color, and for better representation and for the things that folks need, and the changes that we need to see.
Great. And you mentioned members. You also said you have an event coming up where people who want to maybe become members can go?
Yeah, so we're planning a new member orientation on the 14th of September at 6 in the evening. Our office is in the Lynn Arts Building on the 3rd floor. We usually have food and we welcome in people, and it's, anyone is welcome to join. We're made up, like I said, of just folks from the community. So, and we sort of give people an idea of the work that we're doing and sort of the campaigns that we're working on right now, and a sense of like what our organization is, and welcome in new people and hear what's important to them. And so that's the plan for that orientation. We try to have sort of regular things where we're connecting with new folks.
I love that. Yeah. And on the idea of projects you're working on, you'd sent 2 things: the community housing proposal and then ARPA funds. Did you want to start with one?
So it's one and the same. Okay. Yeah. So basically, the city got all this money from the American Rescue Plan Act from the federal government to recover from COVID, and it's being spent in 2 rounds, and we're coming up on the 2nd round soon. But the gist of what we're working on is our group, together with 2 other grassroots groups in the city, Lynn United for Change and ECHO. Lynn United for Change is they do a lot of also similar advocacy to what we do, and also work for tenant rights. So they work directly with tenants. And ECHO is an interfaith organization. They work across the different congregations in the city and across this part of the state. So we came together with them, recognizing that across our memberships, that the housing crisis was the thing really most hitting people. And the fact that the cost and quality of housing, and especially the fact that the rents are so high and continue to increase, and people are just not able to afford a good place to live. So what we did, our 3 groups put together this proposal based on sort of conversations among our memberships from the community of folks most impacted, that lays out what we believe to be a path forward for investing some of these American Rescue Plan funds into long-term solutions for the housing crisis. And it's not a full solution, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And looking through it a little bit, I tried my best. Yeah. It seemed like it was broken down into sort of 3 areas: stability, repair, and then housing vouchers. Mm-hmm. Would you mind talking a little bit about each one? Yeah,
sure. So I'll start with the 2 smaller ones. So we're proposing, I believe it's $2 million for this repair fund that would be managed. We're proposing that it be managed through Lynn Housing Authority. And the idea is that working class landlords or small homeowners could access the funds to help make much needed repairs to the quality of their apartments. And that part of that program would be that then they would be incentivized to keep rents at a stable level. So it would both serve the homeowners / landlord and the tenants, occupying that space, so they wouldn't just be kicked out by renovations. The second piece is sort of around these vouchers. So I don't know, similar to Section 8 vouchers, where it's mobile housing voucher. It would be similar, but it would be a Lynn-specific program that would avoid some of the restrictions of the larger program, so that some folks who couldn't access Section 8, which also the waiting list is full, could access these vouchers for, especially people who don't have documents, who are in really deep need right now because of the pandemic especially, and it would be sort of a bridge to get to a more stable situation. The biggest piece, and the piece that I'm most excited about, is this Housing Stability Fund. And basically the idea is that it would be a fund held, so it would be governed by a board of community-based organizations and city departments. So, and I think that's really one of the key parts, is we want more voice for the community, because people are really tired of seeing all these new apartment buildings go up that they can't afford and not feeling like they have any voice, and especially people who are having the hardest time, who are being most impacted. So our organizations, along with other organizations that work with folks most impacted, would be represented on this board, as well as the mayor's office, Land Housing Authority, and some others. And the idea, this board would decide how the funds are distributed, and it would sort of serve as a, to help sort of the production of, or not the production, it would help with sort of acquisition of properties, like say, whether it's land or apartment buildings or whatever it may be, so that if a nonprofit developer or the housing authority or a CDC wanted to, which is a community development corporation, wanted to purchase the property and preserve its affordability, the fund would sort of help bridge that gap, and sort of meet that immediate need for them to be able to purchase the property with those sort of requirements.
It does. It sounds like a very interesting proposal, and one you've really gone out and talked to people in the community about, because community outreach seems to be another huge piece of your organization. You really integrated it into this proposal. Yeah,
and we've been doing tons of door-to-door is something that Neighbor to Neighbor has historically been our major way of connecting with the community. We've also been going to community events, to the Latino Festival, to the Diversity Matters Festival, and every week going door-to-door talking to people in the neighborhoods that are having the hardest time, people who are being pushed out, who are being evicted. And so really trying to shape this both in a way that responds to the need that we're hearing, and also really creates that space to have voice for these communities that have not really had a voice in addressing these solutions up to this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I'll make it, I guess, a little more personal question, but how did you get involved in this organization originally?
Yeah. So I used to work, this is one version of the story, but I used to work for a housing projects, subsidized housing development in Roxbury in their front office, and I would go around with the exterminator to the apartments and be let in. I'd have to let the exterminator in because they needed a staff person to go around, and so I got to see the apartments, and it was just so frustrating to see that, like, after people wait years and years to get off the wait list, that, like, the quality of some of the apartments was so bad. And that's just like one little piece of, one of the many things that, like, just seeing the inequities in our communities that are so along lines of race and class and so historically built in, where people are just, like, dealing with so many intersecting problems and wanting to be a part of that and wanting to be part of, like, being like a really diverse community that is made up of people from all different cultures, all different backgrounds, and seeing how people are being pushed out of places like Lynn, and wanting to be a part of something that, to stop that, to make sure that we can have those thriving communities, and that people have the resources that they need and they deserve, and that they've been sort of excluded from for years and years and years. So yeah, that's a little bit of it.
Definitely. Said it's a really interesting organization you have, and I agree, really getting that equity, as you said, to embrace how diverse Lynn is, because it is such a diverse place. Even just where we are on Union Street, you see people from everywhere, all different languages, and it's something that's great to see. It's something that I feel like you'd want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's wonderful. One of my favorite, the most meaningful part to me about the work is getting to connect with people from all different backgrounds and have this wonderful community of, diverse folks who, like, have all these different, strengths and traditions and ways of relating to each other. We have members from the Cambodian community. We have members from all different Hispanic backgrounds. Across the Latino sort of diaspora. We have white members. We have it's all different, and I think that's, like, really the strength of, like, so many people are going through the same thing. It doesn't matter, people are going through the fact that they or somebody close to them cannot afford the type of place that they need to live, or they're in danger of not being able to afford it. And, like, that brings people together, where that's just it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable that we have our neighbors and family members and friends not knowing if they'll have a roof over their heads, and, like, the makeup of the city could change. In 10 years, if we don't do something, it's going to be a city of a homogeneous city of people who have moved here from Boston because everybody else will have been displaced.
Mm-hmm. Right. You said so. Swing back to the proposal. What would you say would be, like, your best case scenario would be what a proposal like this is accepted, money's put into it. So, like you said, the city doesn't totally change in 10 years, that people are pushed out.
Yeah, and this is just, I mean, like I said, it's one small piece of the solution. I think there's deeper solutions. We need to bring back rent control at the state level. Cities need to have the choice again to decide whether they want to put a cap on rents so that people aren't being priced out. There's so many different solutions, there's so many different policy solutions that could be put into place. This is a crisis across the state, across the country. But in Lynn in particular, in terms of this proposal, this would just put us on a new path of saying, like, we are going to center the voices of people most impacted. We are going to center the communities that are in danger of being displaced from our city, and many of whom have lived here for years and years and years, and some who are new immigrants here. And I think that, like, ideally the city would accept this proposal, work with us to implement the Stability Fund and these other programs, and ideally would really open up a space for continued community decision-making power, where people would feel like they actually have a voice in the decisions that impact their lives. Yeah.
Great. Well, it's been really great and interesting to hear about this organization, learn more about it. I feel like every day I'm learning about different organizations in Lynn, but it's the work sounds like you are doing, have been doing, is just incredible. So thank you for coming on to talk about it.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having us. And I regret that we couldn't have our members here today. It's hard with work schedules, but hoping to be able to come back with some members and do some of this in Spanish as well, because that's really important to us.
Yes, well, you are welcome back here anytime.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. And once again, I'm Dani Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown. Join us next week for more guests. Now for the community calendar. Tomorrow is full of events, as there will be 5 in total. For more information on those events, go to our website, lyntv.org. There are also several events next week, beginning with the Guatemalan flag raising at City Hall. This will take place at 4 p.m. on the steps outside of City Hall. Head down to see the flag raising and hear officials speak. Our Career Center will be hosted at City Hall through a partnership between Mayor Nicholson and the North Shore Career Center on Wednesday, September 14th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be one-on-one meetings, career coach advising, and job search assistance, to name a few of the services. Walk-ins are welcome. Also, the Family Forward Research Center is holding their weekly True Mentoring at Centerboard from 4 to 5 p.m. on Wednesday, September 14th. This is a group for young men aged 8 to 16 who have an absent father due to various reasons. The mentors come from all walks of life and wish to make a difference in the lives of the mentees. A Nicaraguan flag raising will also be taking place at City Hall on Thursday, September 15th at 3 p.m. Head down to see the celebration of one of the many nationalities who are represented in Lynn. For more information on these and other events, head to our website, lyntv.org. That brings us to the end of this week's news. To stay up to date and learn more about events happening around the city, visit our website, lyntv.org. Also, subscribe to our YouTube page, Lynn Community Television, to see all the latest videos and interviews. And follow us on social media at Lynn Community Television. I'm Dani Vittori, and we will see you next week.